Welcome to another video. So in this video we're going to be replacing the front wheel bearing. This is a 2014 F02, but the F01s are identical, and pretty much all your BMWs are going to be very similar. There might be slight things different, but I would recommend you always, get it quality. Don't go to eBay and get something off of eBay. Get a good quality one. But you can see the bolt pattern's different, so you can't put it on wrong. Anyway, first thing we got to do is we got to get the car jacked up. And always use jack stands. I know of people that have died when cars fell on them. It's not a joke. So we're going to get it jacked up. We're going to remove the wheel. And then we'll move on and see what's next. Okay, so with the wheel off, if you look behind it, you'll see two of these little caps, and they kind of hide because they're the same color as everything else. But see if I can show you, they're like right back on the caliper itself. So if it's a little bit easier for you, you can turn the wheel out. And for these cars, the way you have to do to turn the wheel is you have to push the start button without your foot on the brake. So you energize it, and then you can turn the wheel back and forth easy. But if you turn the wheel out, it's a little bit easier. But at any rate, you need to take those two out, take the caps off, and then it is a hex 9 millimeter to get the caliper off. Then what you're going to need is you're going to need a pro bar of sorts, and you want to pry the pads so you open it up a little bit so you can slide it off the rotor. Now if you're going to reuse the pads, you want to be a little bit careful not to damage them, but if you're going this far, it may be a good time to replace the pads. So yeah, so if you pry on this part here, this part bolts to your body is non-movable. This part is your caliper, and if you pry on that, it'll push out and it'll push the piston in on the caliper and give you room to take it off. So we're going to do that next, and then we'll move on to see what's left. Okay, so next thing we got to do, you see this is a little spring, it's like spring-loaded thing. We got to pop that out. It just goes across to keep tension on the part of the brake pads. So you can usually just get on there and give it a little pop, and it'll pop off. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, I guess. There you go. So it popped right off. So that holds your pads together. Now the whole thing will just come out. So you just got to work at it. You see it's completely loose. The only thing you have to watch out for is one side has a brake wear sensor on it. You don't want to break that, or you'll be back in here replacing it. And if you noticed, I mean, you see these rotors look terrible. So I'm going to put rotors and pads on here now. Be sure to subscribe, because I actually got this. I had a 2010 750, and I drove it probably about 80,000 miles. I bought it wrecked from Copart, fixed it, drove it, and then, it did that valve guide seal thing and started burning oil. Then it started having electrical problems. So I'm like, okay, forget it. It's not worth fixing. So I picked up a 2014, and that's what this is. So same thing, what I did is I took all the parts off of the 2010 and put them on this, and they all fit. The only thing that's different, there's a few parts that are different, like the headlights are different. If you go from the F01 to the F02, the headlights are a little bit different. But other than that, everything else is the same. So my other 2010 that I have only has maybe 4,000 miles on brand new brakes and rotors. And they're not cheap rotors. They're, I bought high quality stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and move those over here, because somebody drove that with it digging into it. But at any rate, if you're interested, subscribe or take a look around the channel, and I got tons of videos on this stuff. So get the brake out of the way, and then we'll move on to what's next. Okay, so with that off, and I should add, always tie up your caliper somehow. You know, don't just leave it hanging by the hose. The hose is not strong enough, they're heavy. So try to tie it up somewhere, get a piece of wire or something and tie it up so it's out of the way and supported. So the next thing we got to do, if you look in the back, there's 2 bolts here that hold on this piece, and they are 18 millimeter. So you got to take that off. Then to get the rotor off, you got to take out this right here, and that's 6 millimeter. Now, I've had these strip and break off and everything else. The thing about it is, you know, this goes into the bearing. So we're replacing this, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you mess up the bolt and you don't have another one, it's hard to line up those holes because BMW uses bolts instead of studs to get the wheel back on. I've sat there and cussed at it before because I didn't have a little bolt. But anyway, if you feel like it's not coming out or something, put an extension on there and hit it with a hammer a couple times. A lot of times that'll break it free. But at any rate, we're going to take this off. Then we'll take this off. We'll get the rotor off, and we'll move on to what's next. Okay, so what I did also, I just give myself more room. I took the splash shield off. There's literally 4 number 10 bolts in it just to get it me more room. And the next thing you do, if you look behind it, you can see the bolts. So this piece here is in the way. All the rest of them you can get to, but at any rate, this is in the way, suspension part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tie rod end off, and I'm going to take this off too, so I can get around and get plenty of room on it, what have you, like that. So the tie rod end is a 21, and the other suspension is a, what is it, 24? Yeah, I thought 24. So this is new. This got damaged in the accident that it was in, so it's new, so it should come off pretty easy. Now you can buy different kind of pullers and things like that because they can be ignorant to get off. But if you look at them, they have a little spot here with no threads on it. So a wheel puller, you know, and there's a hole like in the middle, a wheel puller both ways can help, or sometimes just a little tap up here. You don't want to smash it because then you won't be able to get the nut back on, but you know, a light hammer can pop them loose. I'm thinking this one's going to come out pretty easy because it's only been on there a couple weeks, but this one may be more difficult. But at any rate, we're going to take those 2 out, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so I got them loose. They weren't too bad. Any rate, now we need a 12 point, number 12. Okay, because these are all 12 point back here. And as you can see, and let's see if I can get a good picture of it. In the back there'll be 4 of them. 2 up top, 2 on the bottom. And now you can get to everything, so we're going to put those on. Now, sometimes when you pull down, you know, to loosen it, because this is like a little bit flexible, you know, you can't break the bolt loose. But make sure you got this in there good, because the last thing you want to do is strip it out. You know, if you need to tap on it a little bit with a hammer to make sure it's all the way in. And sometimes you got to set like a jack underneath of it, and then you can use a bar to pull down and break it loose. So we're going to get that off next, and then we'll see what we got left. Okay, so it is off. So you can see in here, you can see that's where your speed sensor is. Now I think if you ever have to replace that, you can get to it from the back and replace it. You don't have to take this off. But you can see the bolts are different widths, so it'll only go on one way. Now if you look at these bolts, okay, you can see the Loctite on there. So I always put non-permanent Loctite on this kind of stuff. If you want to go all out, you can get new bolts that are already set up with Loctite on them, and you just put them in. But at any rate, some things like this, the brake caliper, and the bar that the caliper bolts to, I always put Loctite on that stuff. It's not necessary on front end parts because they kind of wedge in. But yeah, I just, I've had things come loose before and I just make it a habit. The other thing, I had a terrible time getting the rotor off of here. It like rust together. So I always, we got a nice new one now. Of course, it's going to go in there easy. But I always put some anti-seize or some grease on it so when it comes time to take the wheel off, or because the wheel actually fits on the very outside of it and the rotor fits on the inside of it. So, you're not beating on it with a hammer and what have you like that. So the other side is going to look like this. So what I'll do is I'll take sand cloth and sand it all down, and then I'll sand inside the rim also, and then put grease on it. That way, next time I do a brake job or something, it's going to come apart easier for me. So at any rate, you pretty much just reverse what you did. And as you can see, the brand here, FAG or FAG, that is the brand BMW is using. So this one says BMW on it because I'm assuming it's made especially for BMW, but I'm sure they're the same thing. Same company's making them. So you can find them somewhere, and you go to BMW and they're going to give you a premium to put their name on it. At any rate, I hope this helps you out, and pretty much just reverse what you got. And like I say, be sure to subscribe. I got tons of videos. You can see how I rebuilt this car. We have on other BMW models and other things also. So enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck.